everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and today I am joined by two of my co-hosts, Mikka Burrell. Mikka, welcome back. It feels like it's been a minute.
It's been a while, and we're still doing this remotely, so it's a little strange, but happy to be talking with you all tonight.
And we also have Christian Canales. Christian, this is going to be important, obviously, for the recording today, specifically as we get into our guest. But Christian, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back again and putting out more content.
Yeah, we're trying to get back on the horse, I guess, as news is kind of flowing in now, and there's some stuff happening around the world of soccer. We'll be talking about a little bit of the of Germany's return to live football being played, but in the meantime, we have a very special guest today. Not directly linked to Locomotive FC. But certainly has an impact on the matches played at Southwest University Park and elsewhere. We are joined by professional referee and amateur trivia man, Chris Canales. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Phil. Thanks.
So Chris, I mean, first and foremost, why don't you just you're a referee? Why don't you talk us through some of the just your background in the game and kind of what brought you to being a referee and actually kind of pursuing this path in the game of soccer?
Sure. So I'm currently an assistant referee in Pro 2. So Pro 2 was previously called the Pro Development Group. You might have heard it called that in the past. This new season, it's been rebranded to Pro 2, but everything else essentially works the same. But yeah, obviously, like most referees, you don't start at the pro level, of course. So I'm in my 7th year as a registered referee, and obviously you start refereeing in youth games. U10, U12, and you move your way up through the different levels of competition. I actually started in New York City. So, you start with local, smaller soccer leagues. Gradually you move into regional type competitions, regional premier leagues and things like that. And then again, you gradually move up and then you get invited to showcases and tournaments. And if you do a good job, of course, that's what refereeing is all about. You have to do a good job to get noticed. And if you consistently do a good job, eventually you can make it to a level where you're refereeing professional soccer.
So, I mean, that journey, obviously now 7 years assistant referee. How competitive is it to reach a professional level? I mean, it seems like if there's referees at all these levels, it seems like it would be pretty competitive to reach the level that you're currently at.
Yeah. So, for example, Pro 2 is made up of 4 tiers, basically. 3 of those are kind of the tiers that you would see working in USL Championship and that level. In those 3 tiers, there's 30 referees and 64 assistant referees, kind of from all over the country and from Canada as well. So it's not a big group. The top tier that's working MLS is about the same size. So, you're talking less than 200 referees working at the top levels, which would be, MLS, USL Championship, and then also NWSL, the Women's Professional League.
Right. So one thing that always fascinates me about referees is the mentality. I think within the game, on the playing side, people talk about goalkeepers kind of having a different mentality to the rest of the players on the field. Referees, it seems like you have to have a different mentality altogether. I mean, how do you deal with the, I don't want to say anything too harsh, but how do you deal with the fact that you're at times kind of the bad guy, even caught between two teams who might not necessarily like each other. They may sometimes turn their wrath on the officiating, regardless of their hate for each other. So how do you deal with that side, and how I guess is the mentality of referees having to be that kind of the bad cop sometimes?
It's funny you bring up being a goalkeeper and that different mentality, because I was a goalkeeper too, and played fairly seriously before transitioning into refereeing. But as far as being the bad guy goes, especially in the moment, you're just not even paying attention to what you think people are going to think about it. Obviously, it's something that you do that comes with a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of people watching, but also, again, your advancement and even just your status staying in within Pro or within Pro 2 is dependent on you doing a good job. So that keeps you pretty focused on just the decisions and the task at hand. I don't think we ever consider being the bad guy. The crowd is there. Obviously, there's noise. You can hear something sometimes, but for the most part, we're not even paying attention to that at all.
Right. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, you kind of have to focus in a similar way to the athletes as well, the players as well, who are trying to drown out that pressure and that noise, those external factors to focus on the task at hand. Is there any type of, I get, so much is talked about with different players, the way they prepare during the week and the way they prepare before a match. I mean, is there a similar approach for referees of how you guys prepare when you have a game coming up that weekend, or is there any specific routine that you have, getting ready for a match in the same way that we would think about, the way the athletes prepare?
Sure. Yeah, I can kind of take you through what maybe it's not exactly a day-to-day, but in some ways it is, but our week-to-week preparation for games. So everyone in Pro and in Pro 2 has a designated coach, right? So we're in regular contact with our coach. In the lead up to a game, we will do a pre-match webinar. So that's usually a few days before the game with a coach. Usually that's with the referees coach. And we have a dedicated video analyst who's doing scouting reports. We're going through that just like a coach would or a player would before the game, looking at tendencies of players, tactical information. We're going through all that kind of preparation just like you would as a player. We do monthly webinars as well, where we're going back through clips after each game. We cut our own clips, so we'll actually watch the entire game back again. We have some software that we use where we're cutting out clips of individual incidents and basically every decision that's significant that we made. And we'll critique each other's. We'll go through clips that have happened. I think a lot of people think that there's no accountability maybe for a referee. They're done with the game, they go home, and that's it. But we're really dissecting all of our performances and then each other's performances and trying to learn from those all the time. So we go through those in those webinars. We do post-match debriefs. Most of our games in USL Championship are assessed. So we'll do debriefs with, they're not actually called assessors in US Soccer anymore or in Pro. They're also just called referee coaches, but they'll be there doing a formal assessment for us. And we do self-evaluations after every game too that gets reviewed with our coach. And then even just day to day, we have, even just Pro 2 we have our own dedicated sports scientist, so we have a sports science program. We use an app. We have exercises sent to us every day, and we're reporting back on our exercise. Every morning I wake up, I have to record my wellness, how I slept, how my muscles, different individual muscles feel. After the training, we submit a post-training report that details how our workout was. If we travel, we do travel for games, but even not for games, anytime we're traveling, we're submitting information about our travel and how long it was and how long we were sitting. So it's pretty extensive what we're doing day to day, week to week, match to match.
Wow, there's a lot in there that I think is news to four of us here now, as Austin has joined in. So we've got Austin Young on the line. Austin, how's it going, man?
Sorry about joining in late, y'all, but how are y'all doing?
It's all good. It's all good, man. Welcome to the call. Yeah, Chris, like you covered a lot there that I think is news to most of us on the call, because we do have that mentality, I think, where we see referees in the game and then they're just non-entities for a week, and then they become, the next crew is reffing the next game, and that's just how it is. So there was a couple of really interesting points you brought up. I think the first is just the idea, and it's something that I think, and Mikka, you probably feel this way too, that when you watch any league kind of globally, it seems like referees have that idea maybe of how a player plays, or if they have a tendency as maybe a diver or as a hothead, like they're going to get more attention. So it's really interesting, Chris, to hear you mention the fact that you do review those things. I mean, are you looking for the troublemakers? Are you looking for ways to kind of diffuse situations? What are some of the things that you might key on? Not in any specifics, but what are some of the things you might look for in player tendencies, I guess, when you're reviewing those tapes?
I mean, we do look at player tendencies, but obviously it's not like, we're looking at, this player has 4 yellow cards and we need to get to the 5th yellow card. It's nothing like that, obviously. I think more of it is that we're looking at tactical information. That's the bigger thing. This player is maybe going to be playing here. This player on the opposition is going to be, on that same, in that same area of the field, and that's somewhere where we might have, more action, more of a clash, something like that. And again, we want to, obviously, game to game, formations change, lineups change, but we just try to get a sense of who's going to be out on the field and what maybe some aspects of the matchup on any given night will be.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I'm sure it's a positioning thing as well for you guys. I mean, with you being an assistant referee, you primarily have seen action like as a linesman. At least, when I've seen you in the crew, I guess is it sometimes that where you're like, oh, this guy's playing up top for such and such a team, he likes to get in behind, so I'm gonna have to really like track this. I'm gonna have to really like make runs with this guy to be able to make accurate offside calls, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation of it. For an assistant referee, especially, you're looking at defensive lines, center back pairings, and then on the other side, you're looking at attackers and how they will be interacting and what kind of close offside decisions you might be anticipating.
That's so fascinating to me, because it's just something that's so, I don't know, I guess it's not talked about in a lot of ways. Of how referees are preparing for games is not ever really discussed. So that really stuck out to me in what you said in terms of your routine of preparing. It's not just a like physical preparation or a we're making sure that we're emphasizing a certain rule or something like that, you guys are actually paying attention to the matchups as well. That's it. I don't know. It's something that it makes total sense, but never really thought about. If I'm being honest, like never really considered.
And I really don't think that there's a referee or assistant referee working at this level who doesn't have kind of even an academic interest in the game. So we all really, I guess we kind of geek out on this level of analysis and trying to understand the game, and you know, it's something we all enjoy. I think we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't enjoy that aspect as well.
And I mean, from that like kind of view, how tough is it to, because obviously, as you said, you're focused on your performance, you're focused on making the right decision. How difficult is it to, as the game is, because you obviously have an interest in the game, you have an appreciation for what's going on in front of you, when something does happen, how tough is it to remove the emotion from it? Because I know as soccer fans, like we all here are emotional about the game, and I'm sure it's the same. So how do you remove that, you know, mentally? How do you kind of go about removing the emotional side when you see something you know, spectacular, or you have to make a narrow decision on something that, you know, would be an emotional moment type thing? How do you remove the emotion from the game to be able to like stay focused on making the right decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy a beautiful goal just as much as anyone else from my spot on the line, but yeah, something else, you know, that happens in front of you, really, again, in the moment, it's mostly just like purely analytical. You're trying to make sure you're coming to the right decision. You're thinking about the right things, and that level of focus really just pulls you out of the emotional situation. You know, obviously, reading the emotion of the game and feeling the emotion of the game is part of that, because, you know, that kind of changes throughout the game, right? The game has different temperatures, different levels, and you have to feel that out as well. And, you know, a hard tackle in the 5th minute isn't always the same temperature-wise as a hard tackle in the 30th minute or a hard tackle in the, you know, 93rd minute. So it's something you're paying attention to. But I think internally, thinking about your own emotion, that almost disappears. And it happens, I think, through experience, but also just kind of naturally because you're so focused between the lines.
Right. Well, and speaking about your, you know, experience as an assistant and everything, Austin, I think you had a question more specific to kind of the conditions of being a linesman in the USL.
Yeah, so one thing that's always intrigued me, especially like I remember when New York NYCFC came out, a lot of the refs would be complaining about the configuration of the way Yankee Stadium was and would it be affecting their line of sight. And I'm just wondering, just as yourself, you know, especially in the USL, dealing with a lot of baseball stadiums and those kind of funky configurations, do y'all ever have an issue with like your line of sight for offside calls and keeping your line and stuff like that?
Line of sight's never really an issue because, again, all of the fields in USL are regulation size. You know, you have a normal pitch. So the sight lines itself, that's not usually a problem. There were some occasions in some of, especially in some of the converted fields, you know, where it's you're playing on a converted baseball diamond, where the footing isn't excellent, and you know it's a little slippy sometimes. But otherwise, no. There's actually fairly good facilities across the USL Championship, and you know, decent pitches. Not really an issue.
I mean, it's obviously good to hear that everything is easy to or, you know, similar to how it's played. And I think that is one of the things that has made especially, you know, at Southwest University Park, like the pitcher's mound being removable or whatever. What is that?
Retractable,
I don't know
right?
why I'm not thinking of the retractable. Yeah, that's the word. Thank you, Mikka. But yeah, the retractable pitcher's mound and being able to have as wide of a field and as regulation, and not having the Yankee Stadium like outfield only situation that they have. That's always good. But Christian, do you have any? I know you had some questions pertaining to the USL specifically, and dealing with some situations.
Obviously, we wouldn't ask you to go into specifics, but I'm just curious about kind of the professionalism from players and coaches. Is there anyone that you ever encountered that you've had a bad experience with, that you would not want to meet this person in public, or is everyone pretty professional, when it comes to how they behave during the game?
No, I mean, no different than football anywhere else. Like, there are times where people will get upset, but at the end of the day, it's the professional level. These are all professional players, professional coaches, and everyone kind of understands that football is football, and then I think the rest is kind of water under the bridge. That's part of the professional game. You're not always, as a player, going to agree with every decision the referee makes, but people are pretty respectful overall, and they're pros. It's part of being a professional, I think.
One thing that's always struck me is I feel like in football, there's slightly more leniency for what's said to referees before any sort of punishment is issued. Do you like act that way, I guess, where you kind of, if there is a frustrated player, it's a pretty high bar for that player to clear before they're going to be like see a card or for dissent or anything like that? How do USL referees, I guess, deal with players who do get near or toe that line, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, again, any referee who's working at the USL Championship level or similar has refereed hundreds, thousands maybe of games, and has definitely heard it all. I can almost guarantee that referees aren't personally offended when someone's angry with them. There's maybe a caution issued for dissent. That's because the dissent rose to the level that it deserved a caution according to the laws. But I don't think referees are out there getting very offended personally because the player called them a name or something.
Do players not necessarily from you're targeting this guy or anything like that, but are there names across like USL Championship where you just kind of know that is the guy for his team who is going to go after the referee, or speak most excitedly to the referee? Because I think we at Seriously Loco know the guy who's on the blacklist of pro at pro headquarters or whatever from Locomotive. But I'm curious if there are guys that kind of carry that reputation of the guy who kind of goes after the referee most on each team.
Yeah, I mean, we're no different than you in that, players have reputations and they're kind of public knowledge, and people know who certain players are and what their tendencies are. But again, I don't think the referee ever goes into a game thinking, this guy's definitely going to give me trouble tonight. It's not quite like that. Different games are different. Players are different across different games. So to say that, we would go into a game thinking, that's the guy who's going to be trouble, I don't think we do that. But like I said, we know how many cautions each player has received going into a game and things like that. So you can see tendencies there.
Right. Because I know if I was a referee, I'd be looking for a swatch of orange hair running around in light blue, because Richie Ryan would be targeting me at any chance he got, but you don't have to acknowledge that in any way, Chris. I just know that Richie is the one who I think we all know is immediately in the referee's ear after any decision. So that and he's a self-proclaimed ref batterer, I think, in his Irish
says he's always
slang,
in top form. So
yeah. Top ref battering form. But no, it's that is interesting. But the well, I mean, I know Mikka, you had a question kind of focused on the on USL and some technology as well surrounding refereeing.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, I feel like referees are being talked about, well, at least before, plays stopped all around the world, were being talked about a lot more recently because, of course, we have VAR now in a lot of top leagues. And I was just wondering what your opinion is on VAR. Some say that it's taking, the emotion out of the game. Some say it's, making sure that the game is extremely fair and there's no cheating. And some of us, like myself, kind of fall in between where I can certainly see the logic of it. But I do notice that, play is stopped quite frequently. Sometimes people on the ground, they don't know what's going on. But maybe it's a technology that gets better with time. I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on it. And if you ever think that, USL might actually implement it league-wide, or if they have the means for that or the desire.
Yeah, I think around the world, referees in general have liked having VAR. Obviously, sometimes it's more scrutiny, right? There's even more pressure to end up with the correct decision if you have this technology at your disposal. But I think ultimately referees, want to end on the right decisions. They want to end up with making the correct call, and so anything that they have that helps them with that is a good tool. And I think VAR is just another tool that the referee has. I don't know that USL Championship would have VAR anytime soon. I know that NWSL had looked at the cost for implementing VAR. Remember, they're much smaller. They're 9 teams, and I think they came up with a figure of around $1.2 million is what it would cost for them league-wide. Obviously, you scale that up to USL Championship, that would be something pretty expensive. Right now, too, I know like USL Championship just doesn't quite have the camera angles in all of their stadiums that would be required. It takes a lot of camera angles for VAR to work properly. I just think it would be, at this point, probably too much for every team to be able to implement at this point. But who knows? I mean, USL is growing. We've seen it growing year on year for the past 10 years, I think now, since the start of, I guess what you'd call like the USL Pro era. So who knows, 10 years down the line, maybe USL is flying and it has VAR. But I think at this point, probably unlikely. But it doesn't mean that there aren't Pro 2 officials training on VAR. And like I actually do a VAR training module about once a week. So they're prepping us for that too. At this point, just for a potential step up to MLS, but probably not likely that we'll be using that in USL Championship anytime soon.
Now, with VAR, one of the things that is interesting to me is that obviously the way it's been implemented in different leagues is different national associations have taken a different approach to VAR. So in that, I mean, from what you've seen of the way that MLS has implemented it and the way that US Soccer's referees are approaching it, like, how do you think, or what do you think, I guess, about the implementation and the training versus how things have been implemented in, other leagues worldwide. Where does MLS kind of stack up, I guess, in the implementation of VAR?
I think MLS does a great job with VAR. I think the United States was kind of one of the early adopters, right? We were one of the early tests, and MLS started using VAR before most other leagues did in the world. I think we really became kind of world leaders in VAR, and I actually know the staff from Pro has been helping other countries all over the world with their implementations as it gets rolled out in different places. Obviously, this is just my personal feelings about this, but I think it works most effectively when you're following the guidelines from FIFA and from IFAB, and the referees going to the monitor. Obviously, that's not what you were seeing in England last year, and then this year. I just think there's a protocol for how it works or how it's supposed to work, and that involves the referee going to the monitor sometimes. But again, that's how we do it in MLS. I think it works great in MLS, and I also really like the transparency from MLS and from Pro when you see things online, like the Inside Video Review series that they put out every week. You have Greg Barkey, the director of our VAR program, analyzing VAR decisions every week and showing that to the public, and you get to hear some of the audio from the referees. I think that's a really good tool to get the public on board with VAR, because I think when you see some of the negative feedback, it's coming mostly from fans. The clubs themselves, there's frustrations, but overall, the clubs across the world, I think, really like VAR. FIFA just relaxed their requirements for VAR once football restarts after this pandemic, and you've seen in leagues all around the world, even though FIFA's not going to make them continue with VAR, most of them are going to, because the clubs voted on it and they want to. So I think the extra information that MLS gives to the public every week is actually really nice and transparent, and shows how the process works. And I think when people understand how that process works, they're much more willing to be on board with it and to get behind VAR. So I really do think it's a great tool for a referee.
Yeah, I think you make a great point in the fact that transparency is really what gives people that buy-in and the connection to the decisions being made, because so often I think the frustration you see, as you said, is from fans who don't understand why a certain decision was made, or don't understand, the process behind why a certain decision was made. So you see some explanation from journalist stuff. Like England is particularly opaque, I think, in this, and that's where you see most of the frustration, where the federations that have been more transparent, I think Australia has gotten a lot of attention in how transparent their referees are, where they're literally on TV broadcasts giving the explanation of why a decision was made. And that sort of transparency, I think, is ultimately what will get people on board with VAR, in terms of just knowing, they're seeing some images on TV, they're seeing lines drawn for offsides, they're seeing the referee, consulted by the VAR about a certain incident or something like that. But if they get the actual explanation, then I feel like a lot of the frustration will actually be kind of soothed. Obviously, not everyone's going to be happy, but that's just the nature of things. But it seems like that transparency could contribute a lot to people being on board with the whole program.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I find it interesting how much fans seem to enjoy being able to hear some of the communication between the referee crew. So I think that's a nice touch sometimes when you can hear that in MLS's videos, or in the Inside Video Review videos that they put out.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things we spoke about before we started recording was the rule changes and stuff. So VAR kind of segues into this, but Some big changes, not completely seismic or anything like that, but some rule tweaks coming out of IFAB this past year. USL fans didn't witness these in person. They didn't see a lot of the changes. So can you just talk through kind of how Pro handled that transition to the new guidelines, the new rule set, and then some of the big ones that USL fans could expect to see, if and when play resumes?
Sure. So it's a little bit confusing because there were new law changes for 2020, 2021 that came out in April, just a little more than a month ago. Those aren't the ones we're talking about because, again, the U.S., we play a different season. We're kind of a half year behind everyone else in terms of implementation, right? When those laws come out, we're already mid-season, and they don't change the laws mid-season. So the law changes that you'll see coming into effect for this ongoing USL Championship season once it gets started back up again are actually the changes from last year, and you'll already have been seeing those, on television if you watch the Premier League or the Bundesliga or most other leagues in the world. There's some that are pretty obvious that you'll recognize, right? Drop ball has changed. Now you'll drop ball, do a drop ball to the team that last touched the ball at the point where they last touched it, if there's a drop ball required, and that's included if the ball hits the referee and there's a possession change or the possession is impacted, right? That's something you've been seeing in Europe already. That will start happening in USL Championship. Law 13 changes. There's the wall. Attackers aren't allowed within 1 meter of a wall now if there's 3 or more defenders in the wall. So you'll see at least a meter separation of attackers. That's a change that you'll see in USL Championship. The big one, obviously, is the goal kick, right? The ball is in play now once the kick is taken. It can be played again before it leaves the penalty area. Before, that would just be a goal kick again. Now it's in play. So obviously the opponents still have to remain outside of the penalty area until the ball is in play. But once it's in play, then it's in play, and they can enter the penalty area and play it. I think it's an important note that also applies to free kicks from within the penalty area. I feel like a lot of fans aren't aware that a free kick in the penalty area had previously had to leave the area as well. So that's goal kicks and free kicks. That's it applies to both of those.
I didn't realize it was free kicks as well. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Another one that'll be really obvious. That's different. Coaches, technical staff, anyone in that technical area can now receive a caution, a yellow card, or a red card as a send-off. Again, that's been happening in Europe, but I think sometimes when you see it in person for the first time, it's still strange to see the referee go over it and actually, show a card to a technical staff member. So that's a change.
Do technical staff accrue cards the same way players do?
So the accrual of cards is actually just a league. It's a league rule, right? That's something that's coming from the league.
Okay.
So that's not something that's in the laws about how you'd accrue cards. To be honest, in USL Championship, I'm not sure. I would imagine so. I don't see why it would be any different, but that's for the league to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's not something.
You gotta be like, Mark's on his fourth. Mark's on his fourth.
Yeah. One caution away from a suspension, touchline ban.
And then obviously there's some
is
changes to Law 12, which is handball.
Right.
Which has bounced back and forth even in name from handball to handling, and we're back. It's called handball. But those changes, a lot of small things. I don't have to go through all of it, but essentially it's just aligning the laws with the way that it's been refereed over the past, not even just years, like few decades. So deliberate handball is obviously still an offense, right? It always was. But before, pretty much that's all the law said. And obviously there were handball decisions made where it wasn't really deliberate exactly, but it was impacting the game. So the laws have just been changed to reflect how those decisions were being made over the past decade or so.
That one, I think more than any other, I think the handball law has caused the most consternation or the most controversy abroad. How do you see, I guess, in a non-VAR league, do you think that handball will more or less be officiated, as you said, like will be officiated in the same way that it essentially has over the last few years? Because I feel like a lot of the consternation, watching the Premier League, it seems like most people get upset about handball now because of the VAR nature and the ability to go back and watch, the attacker handled in the build-up to this goal, and less about it seems like things will pretty much be officiated the way that they have been, as you said, in a league where VAR isn't in play.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the changes now, one of them is that change that you're speaking about, where if the player, if the ball hits the player on the hand or the arm, and they immediately score, or they immediately gain possession and then score or create a goal scoring opportunity, that's now handling, right? That basically the explanation from IFAB is that football doesn't want or expect a goal where the attacker has handled the ball. Right. It has caused some consternation. I think that leagues around the world have handled it a little bit differently and are kind of settling into a happy medium where maybe it's not dealt with as strictly, but it's still in the laws, so obviously it's still going to be called. I think that's just one of the small changes, and the bulk of the rest of the changes are actually pretty non-controversial. It just has to do with a lot of the position of the hands and whether or not the player is making themselves bigger. The phrase, kind of the key phrase is if the arms are outside of the natural playing silhouette. That can be handling now, whereas before it wasn't quite as clear in the laws, and I think that kind of caused some consternation now too. And that has been made simpler. The other part, it's still there, and that's in a league without VAR, I think you'll probably see it a little bit less.
Well, the changes are certainly, it's something we spoke about before, but just the idea that you guys were officiating under one set of rules while the rest of the world was playing under a different set. It's a interesting problem to have, but as you said, you guys have had some time with the rules now to be able to know how to implement them and know how you want to go about officiating.
Yeah, it's nice for us actually sometimes to be able to see a few months of it on television. We're all fans, so we all watch football too. So we get to see it on television, trialed for a little while sometimes before we get into the thick of it with the implementation of the new laws. So it works out in our favor maybe sometimes.
Well, I want to take the time now. I mean, Christian, you got any outstanding questions you want to throw Chris's way?
Goes back to kind of where you are right now as far as your officiating career. But I'm just curious, how invested in this are you? Like, is this something that you're looking to do professionally for the foreseeable future, or do you have other stuff going on besides this that you are probably more likely to fall on? I'm just kind of curious how much of your life officiating takes up.
mean, it definitely started out as, a hobby. I started when I was fairly young, like I was in college. It was a way to make some extra money. It's obviously more than that now, right? But it's not my full-time career. Like I have a career, I have a day job that, I actually work a lot. I love refereeing though. I have to travel for this. I love that. It means that sometimes, I work all week and I travel for soccer all weekend, but I love it. So it's definitely something I'm going to continue doing. I'm lucky that I have a day job that's flexible enough that I'm able to travel and travel midweek if I need to. But it is fairly serious at this point. Like I said, we at the top of the show, we're doing a lot of work week to week, and I do have responsibilities for refereeing every day. And then just the demands of staying fit as well. We pass a pretty difficult fitness test. We do run the FIFA fitness test, and it's not easy. So we have to train pretty much constantly to stay fit, and that takes up time. But I enjoy it. I'm dedicated to it, and I think every referee, again, who's made it to this level is pretty dedicated to the craft and does it because they love it.
That's I mean, it's really, that was one of the things that really struck me, is just how involved it is. And it's crazy because it is such a big part of what we talk about. We're, talking about football, we follow the team and everything, but it is such a part of the game that seems like such a blind spot. I mean, Mikka, you have any outstanding questions for Chris?
What does clear and obvious mean? Because I still don't know. I mean, obviously it's not relevant to USL at this point, but I mean, just again, I hate, kind of sorry to go back to VAR, but I'm still just wondering what that means, because Bundesliga is coming back, and Bundesliga is one of the, I guess, better implementations of VAR in Europe. So what really does that mean? What's the guidance that refs get?
It's more complicated than just, that was clear and obvious or that was not. There's all kinds of considerations that go into that kind of seemingly simple phrase, right? I'll put it this way. There's only certain instances, right, where something is getting referred down to the referee by the VAR, and that's laid out very clearly in FIFA's and IFAB's protocols for VAR and what gets referred down. It's a tough one. Mikka, this would be a really long conversation, I think, if we're going to get into
I think, no, you know what? It makes me feel better that it's hard to explain, because, I mean, I thought I was just, like, not understanding it, but it's obviously a lot more in-depth than any of us realize.
What I will say is that it's definitely not random, right? It's not different referees have a different idea of what clear and obvious means, the different VARs are referring down different things. It's all very standardized. And the VARs train like crazy as well. They're all referees as well. So it's like additional training that they're doing. And it's just a huge amount of training because there are really complex permutations of different types of things that need to get checked in a particular play. So I guess that's the best way to put it. It's not random. Rest assured that if it's happening in a game, 99% of the time, it's happening exactly as it's supposed to, even if it seems confusing. And I think I'll assign you homework, Mikka. I don't know if you watch those inside video review videos that they put out.
I have
But
not.
I
I
think
need to
that
check it out.
the average fan can learn a whole lot about how VAR works by watching those. And again, you get it directly from the mouth of the director of VAR for MLS.
Perfect.
From Pro, yeah.
And Austin, any outstanding questions you got for Chris?
I'm not sure if maybe you guys may have covered this before I joined in. One thing that kind of, intrigues me is so many players from so many different countries and languages that players may speak. Typically, during a game, how is communication dealt with players who may not speak English or any other languages that you may speak yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I speak English and Spanish. I think I'm trying to think back, but in most crews, you'll have at least one person who speaks Spanish. That can be helpful during a game. But there are players from all over the world in USL. We tend to default to English, but also, I mean, football is pretty universal, right? A yellow card is a yellow card in any language. A lot of refereeing is done with gestures too, right? I mean, you'll see the referee gesturing to players as they talk. Part of that is because that's a universal language, right? Everyone will understand that no matter who it is. And everyone else on the field will kind of get the idea of what the referee is saying to a player based on what they're gesturing. And I don't think at any point in any USL Championship game I've ever worked on has there been a problem with a language barrier or anything like that. Again, it's I think part of the beauty of this game in particular is that it's global and people tend to understand each other.
Well, Chris, as we start to close things out, there's a couple of questions that we ask pretty much every guest, but most of them are players when we have them on. So I want to ask, do you have a referee who is like the one that you watch or one you look up to in terms of how he manages games, how he makes decisions, how he handles players or difficult coaches or something like that? Is there a referee in world football that is like your idol in refereeing?
Yeah, well, in USL Championship, I'm working as an assistant referee, but obviously, everyone who's an assistant referee in USL Championship is also a referee elsewhere, right? Like I'm also officiating, Division I college games in the middle, and we're all referees as well. And I have to say, I live in El Paso now. I don't think I had mentioned that before, but not a lot of people, I think, in El Paso are aware that one of the two referees that the United States sent to the last World Cup is from El Paso and still lives here, Jair Marufo. Right. Who he's an incredible referee. He's been in MLS for quite a long time now. And he, of course, he's local. We all know him here, and I've definitely looked up to him for quite some time. I think even fewer people know that his father was also a FIFA panel referee and officiated in the Mexican top flight. And everybody in El Paso knows him as Profe, the professor. He, I think, has mentored hundreds of referees from El Paso, and so both of the Marufos, they're definitely someone. They're definitely people that I look up to, and I think they're both excellent referees. And his father Antonio is still at it as well. He's out refereeing high school soccer, and he's still going.
Yeah, it is. I was lucky enough to meet Jair at the U.S. Open Cup match between Locomotive and Ford Madison, because he was the the match commissioner for U.S. Soccer, which I did not know that was a thing until a couple of years ago, going to Open Cup matches. But yeah, it is the fun fact of one of the best referees in U.S. Soccer is from El Paso. So no, that's I had an inkling that you might go that route. But that's a very good answer. I mean, and as a student of the game, I will give you the also the ability to say, who's your favorite player that you've watched, or was there a player that you watched growing up? You said you were a goalkeeper, so is there someone you watched growing up that you particularly enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, I got to grow up during kind of a golden age of American goalkeepers, right? With Tim Howard was in the Premier League, and Brad Friedel and Marcus Hanneman. We had and Casey Keller, lots of great American goalkeepers kind of playing at the top level all at the same time. Definitely, I look up to those players. I always loved Edwin van der Sar. He's goalkeeper for Dutch national team, for Manchester United for many years.
I think Austin
was at Ajax as well. Edwin van der Sar, I just thought was a fantastic player, sustained his heights for such a long time, and definitely looked up to him as a player.
I think Austin, you'd enjoy it. That answer of Edwin van der Sar. Yeah.
Most definitely.
And last question before I let you go, Chris, is when things are opened back up eventually and we're kind of back to something resembling normalcy, what's the restaurant in El Paso what's that first place that you're going to hit when the quarantine is lifted?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's one place that has a special spot in my heart, and that's LME downtown. It's Oaxacan food. I love that place. I think I'm very excited to go there. Yeah.
Oh, I love that place too. It's really good. It's very small, which upsets me because it's like tough to get a table sometimes. But
I think if that place scaled up, it would still be full pretty often.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good answer. That's awesome. Well, Chris, I mean, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for nerding out with us in quarantine and social distance wise, and for taking us behind the curtain a little bit of the refereeing side. We get so much of a view of players and coaches, but we don't really get the referee's view often. So I really appreciate you coming in and giving us some insight into your guys' world.
Yeah, I think people think that referee organizations tend to be these like kind of shadowy groups, and they're silent and no one ever hears from them. And Pro definitely isn't like that. And we're happy to share a little bit about what the experience is like. And maybe I'll close with a little bit of a plug, and that's all around the United States and really all around the world, there's a referee shortage. There are youth games that can't get referees. There are, school games, middle school games, high school games, right here in El Paso too, that struggle to have referees assigned every week. So if you thought this was interesting, you want to make a little bit of money because refereeing is something where you can do something you enjoy and be paid for it, then maybe consider reaching out to your local referee association and becoming certified. It can be a lot of fun, and it's really a way to give back to the game and to continue being in service of the game. Maybe if you're not playing at the top level.
Well, that's awesome, Chris. And yeah, we'll hopefully we'll be seeing you in action sooner rather than later, as hopefully USL is getting back to things, at some point, once it's responsible, obviously, and safe to do so. Hopefully we'll see you back on the touchline. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's soon, but safe.
Well, stay safe, Chris, and again, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, thank you all for having me.
All right, that was Chris Canales, the professional referee, or pro referee. As you heard it from, that was like I said, a lot of that was complete news to me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I kept thinking of all the times that we've like shit on referees on our show.
Yeah.
I think we know in the back of our heads that they do work extremely hard, but like you said, we're emotional about it, and they kind of have to be detached. So yeah, it was extremely informative for me.
Yeah, I definitely felt a pang of guilt, just slight guilt. I'm not
it,
like
you feel it now, but like first game back when one of our players takes a hard tackle, that's all gonna go right out the window real quick.
Pretty much.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Oh man, well guys, I mean we are we're a couple of days away from live soccer is about to start taking place again. And I know Mikka, obviously very vocal Bundesliga fan. Myself, a fan of a team in the second Bundesliga who currently has 3 coronavirus cases right on the eve of them restarting play. But but the Bundesliga in Germany is getting back underway. Christian, Austin, I mean, you guys not necessarily the most avid watchers of German football, but I mean, with it restarting, this is kind of a chance for German football to gain some viewers and gain some eyeballs that maybe they wouldn't normally get.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, with it coming back and just people itching for sports and all that, it's something that people are definitely going to tune into. I mean, I watch Bundesliga every once in a while. Consider myself a Dortmund supporter, so I'm definitely going to be watching it, especially with the race being so close. But I think it's just going to open up that league to so many more people who may not possibly watch the Bundesliga a whole lot, or even just in general a whole lot of European football, which I mean would be a big surprise if people really don't. But it's definitely going to be interesting how they're going to go and proceed with this and see how fans are going to react and see how much attention it actually gets,
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, Christian,
I mean,
you were about to say.
Yeah, it'll be all eyes on them, which I think is great for them. I'm kind of curious, kind of the skeptic in me. Obviously, I think a lot of people know that this is a little bit more than a little bit financially motivated. But I think that I'm just curious what it was like between all these European organizations, if there's kind of a race to be the first one back for this reason, because if at least for the next 3 weeks or whenever Premier League is supposed to start up again, literally 100% of the eyes are going to be on them. So that's what I think about. But yeah, as far as from a fan standpoint, I've been trying to read every primer to to Bundesliga that I can find. Some a little more sincere and serious, and others a little more lighthearted. I tend to find the lighthearted ones a little more entertaining, and I think I'm gonna base my judgments based off of those. Unfortunately, don't shame me, Mikka, but I think that it'll be interesting. It'll be just another part of my football journey that we've chronicled over the last year and a half.
Mikka, as your well-documented Bundesliga viewer, Borussia Mönchengladbach supporter, the idea we spoke a little bit before we started recording about how this is going to be the Bundesliga, but also it's kind of not going to be the Bundesliga. So, I mean, how is that in terms of, what people are seeing almost not being like the real deal?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier this week that really put it in a way that I couldn't really describe, but they basically said that, football is not really back. I mean, football, the entity and the business is back, but football, the spirit isn't. And that's one thing that's kind of a shame about this whole situation, is that for once Bundesliga is going to have, all eyes on it, as Christian said, but really what makes it so great isn't going to be there, which is the fans. And of course, I'm not saying that they should be, because obviously it's probably not safe at this point. And in fact, the DFB are being very strict about, the protocols that they've put in place. I mean, I think I just recently saw that I think it was Augsburg's coach is not even going to be allowed to be on the touchline because they found out he went and bought toothpaste when he's supposed to be staying in the hotel. I think Hellick, right? Is he Augsburg's coach?
Herlick.
Yeah.
Herlick, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're doing
formerly of Leverkusen.
Right. So yeah, they're doing, I think if anyone can maybe get this right, it's Germany. So yeah, I'm excited that the sport's back, but it is a shame that people who are going to be watching it for the first time won't be able to see the incredible atmosphere that the fans bring, and just all the traditions. And I mean, there's even going to be a derby on Saturday, and I don't know how it'll be without the fans. I did see that Sky and a couple others that are broadcasting the games are gonna like give people the option to like pump in crowd noise, which is just so like dystopian to me. But
it's like an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy it's back, but it's bittersweet, I think.
Yeah, no, and it is. But I think any situation right now, it was always going to be a little bit weird, a little bit like this, because it's either, I guess the choice is basically between like either these games get played and the sport is actually taking place, or we wait until it's safe for fans to be able to attend, which like could literally be like next year. Like we have no idea when that's actually going to be a thing. So it's such a difficult situation, and I think it's difficult for a lot of these, and what a lot of these federations are just kind of grappling with right now is like the whole idea of the structure in Europe is like the last season informs the next. Like every single year there's teams that are relegated and promoted based off of their performance, all that stuff. So like what happens if a season like just doesn't happen, or it half happens, or 3/4 happens, I guess, in this case. And no one really knows how to like wrestle with that, because it's always been based on merit, results, like that sort of thing. So yeah, like it's a weird situation, but there are some awesome matchups, like as weird as it will be without fans. And you mentioned it, Mikka, Borussia Dortmund versus Schalke, the Revier Derby, like one of the biggest rivalries, especially in Northwest Germany, like just an incredible rivalry, and two really talented teams. So definitely a match to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for the uninitiated, there's already going to be the American contingent there with, Gio Reyna in the black and yellow, and McKinney for Schalke. So yeah, these games are always insane. I think actually the last matchup was a 0-0 draw, so hopefully this one's a little more exciting. But yeah, Dortmund obviously a pretty well-known team here in the United States, and Schalke, one of those clubs that are either in the Champions League or trying to get relegated. So yeah, it'll be a good match. But we'll see. It's early in the morning, but I'm gonna be up. So
and I mean, for you guys, like Austin, you said as you support Dortmund as far as Germany goes. Christian, have you landed on a team before things start. Are you going any particular way, or are you just kind of letting things play out and seeing where you land afterward?
I think I'm gonna just kind of be a floater for the first week, maybe the second. Watch as many games as I can, and see if something piques my interest. Just for grins, I might put out a Twitter poll, see how much participation I get on that. But if I do that, I feel like I'll get the obvious answers. So we'll see. But for now, I'm not making any commitments. I didn't buy a team specific kit for that particular reason. So.
I mean, Austin, with a big game on Saturday, do you think Dortmund go or I guess Dortmund's playing, they're playing at home. Do you think they suffer at all playing at home in front of nobody, with obviously the famous yellow wall, all of that around their home stadium, kind of this mystique? Do you think playing such a big game in an empty stadium is going to have any effect on the players at all?
I mean, you have to think so. I mean, especially playing at home, and at Signal Iduna Park. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that. But it's
Good,
like you say, they're so used to the fans being there and Dortmund being such a tough place to play at. So it's going to be interesting to see how the players are going to react to that, and with such a big game coming up, and where the standings are at, they can't really afford to slip up one bit at all if they still want to chase the title. So I'm very interested. I'm going to be like Mikka. I'm definitely going to get up to watch it. So that way we can start getting back into a little bit normalcy.
It is like for those who haven't followed the Bundesliga season up to now, it's definitely a race in basically the top 5 is kind of the race right now. In terms of at the top and trying to make Champions League. Leverkusen really the only team outside of the top 4 that is in striking distance of that last Champions League place. Bayern, after kind of a stuttering start to the season, are back on top of the table, which is like, I guess, business as usual. But
yeah.
But Dortmund, Leipzig, and Mönchengladbach all within 2 points of each other in second, third, and fourth. So kind of just a very tight race there. And Dortmund only 4 points behind Bayern. So I mean, in this interrupted kind of stop-start season, it's not crazy to think that Bayern may drop 4 points here or there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see though what the fitness levels are like, because I mean, players for quite a while had to kind of train on their own, from what I understood. So it'll be interesting to see really how they come back, not really having had a preseason, because you would think after that much of a break, you need some kind of like play that is not competitive but still high level, so you can get back, get your legs under you. But I don't know, Bayern they don't have the depth problems that some of these other clubs do. I'm really interested to see what Leverkusen does. I saw a crazy stat the other day that besides Bayern, they're the club that have made the Champions League the most in like the last several seasons. So I would not be surprised if Gladbach dropped down into Europa again. So we'll see.
Tamika's
yeah, go for it, Christian.
I was gonna say Tamika's point about the fitness. I read something that I thought was wrong, but maybe it's right. Maybe you guys can correct me. But I read that they're gonna be allowing 5 subs. I thought that was something that was going on in the future, but the article that I sound like it was going to happen like starting this weekend. Care to shine any light on that if I'm right or wrong?
I think from what I've read, FIFA has actually approved that. Like that is a thing. But I would have to double check.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, and I'm really fascinated to see what tactically that means to some of these coaches. Like, I just want to see like a real shithouse move where someone just replaces like their entire back four. Or just like something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Like the entire back four and the keeper.
What I
Yeah.
did read though, that because I had no idea how it was going to work, but you can have 5 subs, but you can only make them like at 3 separate times. So there's going to be if you were going to use all 5, you would have to do like a double sub or a triple sub or something weird like that. So
Yeah.
That way they're not stopping play so much. Is that why?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, you can't use 5 subs as a time wasting tactic.
Dude,
you can only use it.
you just know that like Diego Simeone would like do that.
Mourinho has been petitioning FIFA for years to up the number of subs that he can use.
Him too.
He doesn't want more players to play. He just wants more time taken off of the clock. Like that's
with 5 subs, and Dombele would come on in like the 92nd.
Yeah. But really, I think something we spoke about, Mika, and for those of you listening who haven't watched the Bundesliga ever, haven't watched German football at all, don't care about any of these teams, I think the thing that's most compelling about the Bundesliga, aside from the fact that a lot of these teams have pretty cool histories. I mean, you have multiple teams that started, in the late 1800s. You have a couple of teams like Union Berlin who were born out of like the post World War II East Germany, like having to fight through hardships, all that stuff. You have a lot of history and a lot of like varied history amongst these clubs. But one of the most compelling things about the Bundesliga is kind of demonstrated in the fact that the 6th place team and the 15th place team are separated by 11 points. And so there is not really, I mean, aside from poor Paderborn and Bremen down there at the bottom, there's not really any teams that are like objectively bad. Every single game is competitive. There's no like throwaway game where you're like, oh, well, this is going to be a blowout. You could easily watch a game between, just throwing 2 names out there, Hertha Berlin and Mainz, and you're not really sure of the outcome. Like anything could happen.
Yeah, and to be fair to Paderborn, that I've watched a few of their games and they've just been really unlucky sometimes. I mean, they play their asses off, and they're well coached. So
Right.
yeah, I mean they're probably doomed, to be honest. But I mean, the Bundesliga also has a weird way of doing relegation. But yeah, I mean the games are competitive. This is probably the most competitive the Bundesliga's been in a number of years. It is a shame that it was just like cut short by this stupid disease that I hope we can solve soon. But you're right. I mean, there's something here for everyone, really, in terms of, do you like, fast attacking football? Do you like clubs with a lot of history? Is the fans in the stadium really the thing that you focus on? I mean, really, there's a club here for everyone to kind of get into, or just the league in general. I mean, you don't have to pick a side if you don't want to, but yeah, it's great.
So one quick question, Mika, as like Phil said, kind of the resident expert on the league. So who plays, if you could compare Lokomotiv to a team in the Bundesliga, who would you match them with?
Oh man.
Good question.
Yeah, that is. I think I would compare us maybe to Eintracht Frankfurt. Frankfurt is actually like, kind of a working class city. Frankfurt seemed to do pretty well, but they don't always get the plaudits I think that they deserve. I mean, obviously they had that awesome run in the Europa League, and then promptly got picked apart in the transfer window after that, which I think we can kind of relate to, having lost, quite a few of our stars as well. So Frankfurt, I think, might be one. Although football-wise, though, they play kind of a weird system. So maybe not tactically, but just in terms of like their recent form, I suppose, kind of reminds me of Locomotive and their support, very very rabid support like we have. So maybe them.
As
What
long
do you
as
think, Phil? Do you think that's
I was
fair?
gonna,
Or
I think that's totally fair, especially given the fact that I literally thought of Luka Jovic going to Madrid and had Jerome Kiesewetter cold sweats break out across my body, but um, no. So I think that's good as long as if Mark is our Niko Kovacs, then hopefully he doesn't leave for Bayern anytime soon. But but no, I think that's a fair assessment. I think in terms of, I think Germany is tough in comparison when you're looking for a team that plays a similar style, because so many teams play very direct, very counterattacking
right.
styles. There's not a lot of teams, especially as you like go down the table. And it's hard for me to sit here and be like, we play like Bayern Munich, because that's not that's
Okay.
so,
Please don't ever, please.
well, I'm just saying, in terms of teams that really possess the ball, there's not many in the Bundesliga who are comfortable like sitting and just having 65% of the ball and trying to pick teams apart. They like to play on the break. They like to play just fast, and I mean, because Dortmund, Leipzig, Mönchengladbach all play that way. Towards the top, Leverkusen does too. So there's not really a team that I can point to, I think, and say like they play the style that Lokomotiv does. But I think Frankfurt's a very good like culture fit, and certainly in terms of recent history, that is one that sticks out. Plus, Eintracht like won the DFB Pokal a couple of years ago under Niko Kovacs right before he left for Bayern. So they have had recent like silverware as well. Struggling a little bit in the league, like aggressively mid-table this year in the Bundesliga, but certainly a team that has tons of potential, and is kind of recovering from the loss of a couple stars. So so they'll be one to look out for certainly over the next couple of years, 100%, because I'm sure they'll be back amongst the competitive ranks. And then, I mean, one that I would, the feel good story, if you're looking for like the feel good story of the year, then it's Union Berlin, 100%, because they got promoted from the second Bundesliga. For the first, they'd never been in the Bundesliga before, and they're comfortably 11th right now, pretty well on their way to safety. Like no real fears of being back in the second Bundesliga this year. So just a nice story from a team that is genuinely, because you look at the teams from the former East Germany, which, for all of the progress that Germany has made over since 1990 and reunification and all this stuff, the teams in East Germany struggle like financially behind the teams from the West. And so Hertha Berlin, who is has been in the Bundesliga pretty consistently, they were actually founded in West Berlin, like post Cold War. So they were in West Germany, and didn't have the hardships of the other teams. Union Berlin is like a genuinely like East German club that dealt with being behind the Iron Curtain, dealt with being, financially like hard up for decades. And so seeing their fans rewarded with a trip to the Bundesliga and actually being successful, not just making up the numbers, but finishing like, or being in a position to finish like comfortably mid-table is such a cool thing for them. So if you're looking for like the feel good story of the year, it's certainly Union Berlin, I think.
I always wonder what could have been if Neven Subotic played for U.S. men's team.
Yeah, Neven Subotic, famously of Dortmund, but went to college in the U.S. St. Louis University. I think he played he played college soccer there, and then went back to Germany and could have played for the U.S. He is like a U.S. citizen, but his he was able to get a EU passport as well, and yeah, because Serbian, I think, parents,
Yes,
or one of
I
his
think,
parents is Serbian.
yeah, he has like a Serbian passport, a Bosnian passport, a German passport, and a U.S. passport. So,
And then he, you know, won the Bundesliga twice with Dortmund and went to a Champions League final. So I guess everything worked out in his favor. We missed out on a great defender, unfortunately, and now his twilight years at Union Berlin and seeing out his career in a pretty cool environment. Last random fact about Union Berlin is they at Christmas time they fill, like during the winter break, the German football has a winter break from right before Christmas to like February. I think they start up, like they have January off basically. But right around Christmas time they fill their stadium with like couches, like people bring their couches and like recliners and stuff to the stadium, and they do like a Christmas like sing along type thing like in the
what?
stadium.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So Union Berlin is a pretty cool like community club that does a lot of cool stuff with the fans, and it's always very like supporter focused. So yeah. Anyways, that's my ramble about Union Berlin over. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time since we talked to you guys. I know we've been rambling for quite a while now, so we will we'll probably close things up here. But it's been hopefully everybody's doing all right. I know it's tough, like having to stay isolated, having to stay away from stuff we like to do, but ultimately it's so we can get back to the things that we like. Making sure that we can slow this thing down sufficiently, and not get into a situation where we start having to take like drastic measures outside of staying home. We're hopefully slowing this thing down. So USL is like starting small training now, or small group training, and hopefully we're ramping back up to a point where we can watch our beloved our boys in blue back out at the SWAT, but when it's responsible to do so. And yeah, I just hope everyone is staying safe. Everyone here is hoping that everybody is doing well. And yeah, we'll now that there is soccer being played, we may just talk about some Bundesliga for the next couple of weeks, but we'll try to be more regular about bringing you guys content. And yeah, until next time, stay loco and stay home.